Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jay from Sony Alpha Lab, and in this tutorial what we're going to do is go over Lightroom. That's right, we're going to go over editing and enhancing RAW files in Lightroom 4. Not just any RAW files, Sony Nex-6 RAW files, which are really nice. Where do we start here? Developing RAW files, there's so many different things you can do, and if you're familiar with my tutorials, I never just teach you one thing. I go through pretty much my workflow as I do things. So I figured I might as well start this one just a little bit early and show you how I make a collection in order to, get my tutorial in order. So check this out. First thing I need to do is find all my Nex-6 RAW files, okay? So I'm going to go over here to underneath the catalog and click on all photographs. So anyway, if you hit the / key, the one above the return, that filter, the library filter up here on the top will come and go. So yours might not be there. And I'm in library mode right now, okay? Library mode. So all I did was bring up this filter bar. And now what I can do is I can go in here and select different information. So I'm just going to go to camera, scroll down, and here's all the different photos that are in my particular database. So I'm looking for, here it is, Sony Nex-6. Alright, so that's all the Nex-6 files. Now what I'm going to do, go over here, and I could actually select which lens. See that? But I don't want to do that. I'm going to go over to Label, and then I'm going to scroll and go to File Type up here. See that? File Type? Now I can select what type of file. So I'm just going to select RAW, and here's all the RAW files. So now, looking at all those files, what I can do is go through and select a few that I want to edit. Alright? So what I'm going to do is, I already kind of went through here, and I have some starred already. So down here on the bottom you have a rating system. See this? So I'm just going to select 2 stars or better, okay? And now that'll narrow down what I have selected up here in my metadata library filter area. That'll narrow it down to just what I have rated 2 stars or better. So now I have it narrowed down to, if you look down here on the bottom left, it'll show you what you currently have going on. So out of 37,000 images, I have 129 in this particular collection, and one of them is selected. So that's what this information down here is. Very cool. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you, but you could watch the video multiple times and you could hit pause and stuff, so don't worry about that. I might as well just share everything as I do this, you know what I'm saying? I just don't have the time to record a video for every single every little tip. I wish I did, but I just don't. So, like I said, I'm throwing a lot at you here, but just stick with me, and I promise by the end of this, you'll have a much better understanding of how to develop RAW files in Lightroom. So, what I'm going to do here is just select a few of them. All right, I really like this picture. It's pretty cool. We got this one of Sadie here. Looks pretty high dynamic range. This is a cool picture here. I like this one. Alright guys, so now I have a bunch of these RAW files selected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a collection set over here. And to do that, I'm just going to click this plus button and create collection. Alright, and I'm going to name it develop Nex-6 RAW files. I'm going to put it inside a collection set because I already have one called tutorials. See that right here? And I'm going to uncheck that. I don't want to make virtual copies. Basically what it's going to do is it's just going to bring these files, it's going to organize these files into a small little collection set so it's much easier to reference them. They're going to remain in their original location, but this little reference area will just be a quick nav to get to these photos. It's great for making books and things like that, wedding albums. So I'm just going to click create. And now I have, notice this, I got 12 photos here, 12 RAW files selected, and I have it inside the tutorials collection set. And then I have another folder here called developing Nex-6 RAW files. Pretty cool. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the develop module, and what I want to do is I want to reset these because I did some editing to them. Not editing, but I did some developing. So I'm going to reset just to import, okay? And then I'm going to sync. And that's going to sync everything. It should sync it all back to basically no settings at all. Alright, so sync. And now everything should have went back to how it was right off the camera, okay? So now I have this RAW file, And the history here, notice how it just says import. So now we're all reset. All right, so just to summarize again, where we're at right now, we have a bunch of photos selected here. We have 12 photos total, and we're in the develop module. And if I go back to the library module, I created a collection set inside. Well, I created a collection inside the tutorials collection set, and I went up here and used the library filter to sort my files out by selecting different metadata attributes such as Sony Nex-6 and RAW file. We got a couple here to work with, and it should be a good time. So what I'm going to do now, the next step is we're going to go into the develop module. Notice up here on the top right we have a develop option. I'm just going to click that, and D is the shortcut key for that, by the way. You can also hit this little arrow to get rid of that bar to get more screen real estate, which I recommend. Alright, so first thing we got here is the history palette on the left. I want to just go over this real quick. You got presets, which will apply effects just on default that you already have configured. So that's a nice feature. Below that you have snapshots. That's where you can create different types of edits on the same photo and then add a snapshot here and then go back and reference your different edits pretty quickly. That's what that's for. And then history just goes over everything you did. Alright, so synchronized setting is the last thing I did in the previous video, which brought it back to what it looked like at import. See that? So import and synchronized settings look the same. And this is what it looked like when I had it enhanced. See that? So I jacked up a whole bunch of stuff and I straightened it. So let me go back to the raw. This is the raw version. See that? Alright, so, and then down here we have collections again on the left hand side. Alright, so now where do we start? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just click this arrow to get rid of that because I really don't need, click that right there. I don't really need that bar over there. This one on the right hand side though I do need. This is where all the development stuff is. First thing I like to do is adjust the exposure. Click this little triangle here and just go left and right. But if you hold the Alt key down, it'll actually show you where stuff's blowing out. See that? So it doesn't really help so much in this photo, but somewhere around there, I'm going to say plus 0.8. Then I'm going to Alt click and select black and drag that to the left. Somewhere around there. Alright, that's a little too much. Back that off. Something like that. Alright. So all I did was adjust the exposure and the black, okay? And then let me show you. Now I'm going to use the history palette to show you the before and the after. See that? That's all I did was 2 little adjustments and it made a huge difference. So now what I want to do is I just want to crop it quick. I'm going to hit the crop tool up here on the right. See that? Just below the histogram. And now if you go outside the edge here on the corner, this little arrow comes up and now you can crop and turn. So I want to get the church pretty straight there, something right around there. Something like that looks pretty good. I'll hit enter. And now the church looks nice and warm, but the puddle here is looking kind of blue. So I don't really like that. I'm just going to scroll down here to the HSL slider, and with saturation selected, I'm going to click on this guy here. And I'm just going to take some of this blue out. Notice when you hover over different colors, how it highlights. Watch, when I go over orange, see how the orange on the right is highlighting? So this blue here is the color I don't want, so I'm going to drag down here and get rid of that. See that? That looks a little bit better in my opinion. Alright, so now I got the sharpen option here. And this little caution here is telling you to zoom in. So if you click that, it'll zoom in for you. Now, it looks a little bit noisy, but that's okay. I'm going to sharpen it a little bit. And then if you hold the Alt key down, you can actually adjust the mask and only sharpen the edges. See that? I'm going to zoom out quick. So if you hold Alt down while clicking on the mask, you can actually see what you're sharpening. So you create a mask and only sharpen the edges, like so. And then I can do the noise reduction. I'm going to raise that up a little bit. I'm going to zoom back in. This image was pretty noisy. Alright, so that's nothing. Somewhere around 18 looks pretty good. I'm going to zoom back out. Alright, now we have profile here. Now this photo there is no profile for this particular lens. This is the, oh wait, oh, Lightroom updated, fantastic. The 16 to 50 power zoom is now in there. Check this out. This wasn't here, and now it is. That does a good job. I really should have done this first. I'll do this first next time on the next photo. But this makes life a lot easier. I used to have to do this manually, but now you just have to click it. Fantastic. Lightroom updated, so it's got the 16 to 50 power zoom in there now. That's really cool. Now, remove chromatic aberrations. I like to select that as well. And you can actually select you can use this dipstick here to select the particular color that you're having issues with. In my case, I'm just going to leave it at default for this particular photo. And then what I want to do, right here, I'm noticing this blob here is catching my eye. So I'm just going to click this tool. It's the clone and heal tool. And I'm going to make it size a little bit bigger with my mouse wheel here, like that. And I'm just going to click and drag like that. See that? Kind of just fix that. Let me go to clone. Click back to heal. That's good enough. I'll just close it. Alright, so that's what we're looking at. Let me go back to my crop, actually. And notice how there's a lock here on the right-hand side. If I hit if you click on that, the lock unlocks. And now I can adjust my crop unconstrained, like so. And I just want to raise this up a little bit to get the bottom of this puddle. So square actually looks a little bit better to me. I kind of like that better. Something like that. Yeah. Alright, that's pretty cool. And now what we have here is a couple more enhancements. We have this under the presence, we have clarity. Now watch what happens when I drag that up. Kind of creates punch. See that? Watch it. A little more brightness, a little punch. And I kind of like it. So I'm going to leave that. It's at 55. I'm going to lower that a little bit. And then vibrance, I'm going to drag that up just a little bit. Okay. And now if you scroll down to this tone curve, it's set to linear by default. So I'm going to select medium contrast. And that'll just fill in a little bit of the shadow areas with contrast. And it'll also brighten up the highlights just a touch. So I'm just going to go back here, and now I'm going to adjust the exposure slightly. Just a little bit. Alright. It's pretty hardcore edit right here. I'm going pretty far with it. Now I'm going to add a vignette. Close cropping vignette. See that? And then I can raise the midpoint up, raise the feather, and then back it off. Something like that. I really don't care for this blue down here. I'm going to have to go back to the saturation and suck more of that out. You just select this slider here. There we go. So I pretty much took all the blue out now. See that? It almost looks like I have selective color on now. Actually, I gotta go back to crop. I gotta crop this leaf out. I didn't see that. Right there. Enter. Alright, something like that looks pretty good. Now, let me just show you a before and after. Notice on the history palette, I got a lot of stuff going on. And here's what it looked like off the camera, right? Raw file. See how it's like so really dull? Now look at after all the stuff I did. You know, it's greatly improved, okay? So, there's one file. Alright, now let's go to another one here. This one looks pretty cool. And I can tell right off the bat that it looks a little cold, so I'm going to have to warm it up a little bit. So let me just adjust the temperature. I don't think I did that on this file, did I? I don't know if I adjusted the temperature, but that's another adjustment you can make. Anyway, this looks much more what it looked like to my eye. I remember it being particularly warm, so I'm just dragging the temperature over to the right. That's a little too far, but right around here looks pretty good. Alright, so all I did was drag the temperature over to the right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click the R key, it's a shortcut for the crop tool, and I'm just going to bring this down. And because the lock is locked right now, notice how when I crop it's constrained. See that? And when the lock is unlocked, if I was dragging down, only the top would come down. It wouldn't bring in all the sides and stuff. Alright, so I'm going to crop it like that to try to strengthen the composition a bit. Let me just give it a little more breathing room, right about there. Alright, that looks pretty cool to my eye. Actually, let me go back. I want it to be a little bit more. Alright, that looks a little better to me for whatever reason. Okay, so now, again, we're back over here to our develop module on the right hand side. So I'm going to get rid of this just to get a little more screen. Now I can hold the Alt key down and click on exposure, and notice how we have some white dots there. See that? So that means we have stuff that's blown out. So I'm going to go down to the highlights and click that and drag. Notice how the dots are going away? So I'll just drag that down. Negative 45 is where it's at. Alright, so now I just want to show you real quick what that did. So let me go back to my history palette. See, there's a before. And that's really hard to tell. See that? Before, after. It did lose a little bit of punch, but it brought back some of the detail in the highlights, especially at 100%. You'll be able to tell. Actually, let me go back here. See these right here were a little bit blown out. Not much, not much. It's subtle, but the reason why it's significant when, especially on depending on the photo. So that's why it kind of matters. Alright, so I'm just going to drag my exposure back up, and now I got the highlights down. Let me just, alright, right around there is pretty good. And now blacks, I'm going to just hold the Alt key down and drag. Alright, right around there. Just starting to see. That's pretty good. Now I'm going to scroll down here to lens profile, because I want to show you something. Lens corrections. When I click on profile and click enable, notice how nothing comes up. That's because, in this case, I was using my Canon lens. I don't remember if I was using the 135 or if I was using the 70-200. I think I was using the 135, but it doesn't know what lens was attached. So, but I can select what lens it was because I know what lens was attached. So I'm going to go to Canon, and I'm pretty sure it was the 135. So I'm going to select that one. Here it is, Canon EF 135, and there it goes. It just made the adjustment for me. It's pretty cool. And remove chromatic aberration, I'm going to select that. I don't even think there is any, but I'm just going to select it anyway. Post crop vignette, I'm going to add a little bit, like so. I like to feather and raise the midpoint a bit. It kind of blends the edges in just a little bit better. Alright, so now I'm going to go to my tone curve, and I'm going to select medium contrast. There we go. And then I'm going to drag this one up a bit. Whoops. Let me undo that. I'm going to select this point and just drag it right off the curve, like so. Then I'm going to select this point and bring it up to brighten it a bit. Yeah, you could just pull these points right off the curve. See that? And then you can just click to add another point. So I want to bring the contrast down, like that. And notice how the histogram up top is moving when I do this. Isn't that cool? Alright, so something like that. And let me just show you a before and after. Here's what it looked like on import. Okay? And here's what it looks like now. So we went really far. Okay? Now check this out. Clarity. This is a really cool slider. I'm going to jack this up a bit, and look what it does. See how the background really enhances? So I like that. So I'm going to bring that to around 34 or so. And then the vibrance I'm going to bring up to kind of counteract. The clarity kind of pulls out a little bit of the vibrance. Now I'm going to zoom in and look, and we got some noise there. So we're going to need to add a little deep noise reduction. Raise that up to about 20. That looks pretty good. 18. Sharpen. I'm going to do the same thing with the masking. Hold the Alt key down. I only want to sharpen this plant here. I'm going to raise the sharpening up to like 40 or so. That looks pretty good. Nice. Alright, so what I'm going to do now, because I used this tone curve and I brought the blacks down, I'm actually going to back this black off just a touch. And right pretty good. Then I'm going to, you can actually click up in the histogram and drag as well. So I'm just going to click up there and just bring the midtones to the right just a little bit. Alright, something like that. That looks pretty good. Now, one thing I'm noticing about this image is it's not balanced. The right side here looks noticeably darker than the left side up here. So when I add a vignette, it's not going to balance out. The top left is always going to look a little brighter, see? So what I can do is, I can use this cool tool. It's called the gradient tool. And if you have the exposure set to like -1 or something, you can basically just click and drag and add like a tinted area. See that? So something like that. And then this, the amount that you spread, see how sharp the line is? The farther you pull, the more it fades it. So somewhere around there looks pretty good to me. Right about there. Alright, now I can adjust it by playing with the exposure just to get it to balance. I just want the image to balance a little bit. Right about there looks pretty good. Alright. That wasn't necessarily, 100% necessary, but I just wanted to show you that little trick, because a lot of times with blue skies and stuff, you'll need to do that. Alright, so that's pretty good for this photo. I'm pretty happy with that. So let me just show you a before and after again. Here's a before. Let me go to full screen. Here's a before, and here's an after. Pretty significant. Alright, so there's two images down. Here's another raw file, and this one looks pretty bad right off the camera. I mean, it's got a lot going on in the scene, so, and the sun there obviously affected the exposure. But if you look at the histogram, most of the information is there. See this? Just the highlights are slightly blown, and if you hit this triangle here, it'll show you, or you actually could just hover over it. See the sun is slightly blown out? But I can drag the highlights back a little bit, like so. Look at that, no longer blown out. Pretty cool. So let me drag it back over to the right just a little bit. I want it to be right before it blows. Alright, right there is pretty good. Now, the overall color of this image looks cold. So I'm going to drag the temperature over to the right. Alright, something like that looks more like what it looked like color-wise. So now let me drag the exposure up. Alright, hang on one second. Alright, so I brought the highlights down, okay, and I adjusted the warmth here. So now, what this photo clearly needs is some fill light. You can see it's so dark down here. So, we can just drag the shadows up. See this slider? Drag the shadows. Whoa, look at that. Pretty cool, right? Alright, something like that. Then, let's go down and let's drag the clarity. Wow, very good. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that. Vibrance, pretty good. I could use that trick with the hue saturation slider and suck some of the color out of the road if I wanted to, but it's not really bothering me in this photo. Now sharpening, let me zoom in here and see what we got. It's pretty good. It definitely needs a little sharpening. Let me hold Alt down and mask this. Alright. Something like that. It's pretty good. Now I'm just sharpening the edges. Then I can drag up the noise a little bit. Somewhere right around 11 actually looks pretty good on this image. Excellent, excellent. Very happy with that. That looks good. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll down here. Remove chromatic aberrations. Let me click that. See if we have anything. This file actually looks pretty good. I'm just going to leave that unchecked. Now I'm going to add a vignette though that'll add a little bit of depth to the image here. Something like that. Right around there. Okay. Now I'm going to go back up to exposure and hold Alt down and see where we're at. And that's definitely blown out. Let me go to highlights. Let's bring that back a little bit. Something like that looks pretty good. I'm just going to adjust it where I can see here. Something like that's pretty cool. Alright. So, as you can see, we can adjust whites. Let me show you a before and after on this image. That's what it looked like right off the camera. Alright, here's what it looks like adjusted. Now that's absolutely amazing, right? And you can only do that with a RAW file. You'd never be able to pull that off with a JPEG file. Now this is set to linear, so let me change that to medium contrast. That'll add a little bit more black. So then I can go back up here. And actually I kind of like it. Add a little more realisticness to it. But it's a little too much, so I'm going to back that off a little bit by raising this up. I could just double click it and reset that to 0. I don't really want to raise the blacks up. I'm just going to back this tone curve off a little bit actually by clicking these and dragging it off. There we go. As a matter of fact, let me show you something. I'm just going to go back to linear here. And now I'm going to click this guy here, and I can go out in my scene and actually adjust wherever I want. So let's look at the dark area. Like right here should probably be black. So I'm going to click and drag down. Alright, that's pretty good. But I don't want this spot here dark so much. So I want to drag that up a little bit. Let's see, somewhere... I'm looking, notice over on the histogram how when I move around that little dot moves. So I'm going to click somewhere around here and then drag up. There we go. Then click here then and drag up just a little bit. That's giving me a little bit goofy of a curve. So I'm going to get rid of this. Middle one there. Drag this one up a little bit. This is cool. You can kind of freehand this a little bit. Something like that's pretty good. Alright, now the sky is definitely too bright now, but I wanted to fix the bottom of the image, and it looks pretty good. The vignette is a little bit much, so I'm just going to back that off a tad. Alright, and then I want to go to Profile and enable that. I forgot to add that. There we go. That looks much better. Alright, now I'm going to bring this vignette back down a little bit. That's good. Okay, now I want to show you the gradient slider. And I'm going to gradient the sky. Something like this. And I could drag that up. And then back it off. Alright, so this is... Alright, so this is without the gradient filter, and that's with the gradient filter. So you can see how you can chop down the sky quite a bit with it. It works well. Let me close that. That's a before and after. I mean, that's an unbelievable difference. It's a pretty cool photo to illustrate how powerful RAW is as opposed to JPEG. Alright, so let me hit FF. And then Shift Tab, and then I'll hit L to bring back the light. Alright, so we got more photos here. Now this one you can see is pretty bad. This is at 16mm with the 16:50 power zoom, and you can see the corners, how dark they are, and also the barrel distortion. But check this out. This is a good image to show you how well the profile works. Watch this. That's amazing, right? Before, after. It's like so much work is done. Oh, so nice. Great job, Adobe. Great job. Alright, my complaining as to updating the profile seems to be paying off because I can't believe how quickly this update came out. But anyway, the first thing I'm going to do to this image was that. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Next thing I'm going to do is adjust the color. It's pretty close, actually. I'm just going to raise the warm, cold. It's actually pretty good where it is. Now I'm going to go to the crop tool here, and I'm going to crop this in a little bit. I'm going to just bring it down. There we go, get a little more layering. We've got green, red, blue, hit enter. Alright, not the best composition here, but a good photo to illustrate how powerful RAW is. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do, hold the Alt key down and adjust the exposure. It's letting me go all the way to Wow, 1.5 before it starts to blow out. So I'm just going to back that off to about 0.5. That's pretty good. And then I'm going to go to the black, drag that down, right around there. Now that should look much better right off the bat. Let me do a before and after. Alright, let me do... That's just with the contrast. So that's with exposure and the blacks adjusted. So now I'm just going to drag the clarity up. Let's see what the clarity does, how it gives it this like really grungy look. I like that. So I'm going to back it off though, somewhere around there. Looks pretty good. 25. Now I'm going to bring the vibrance up a little bit to kind of get some of that brick back. So the brick looks pretty good, but notice how the grass is kind of going neon on us. Very common problem. So easy fix though. Check this out. You just scroll down, and then you can click this little adjustment target here, and then you can hover over the grass. And once you get to the green that you want, or whatever color, in this case it's coming up as a yellow green, just click and you can drag down and pull a little bit of that out. See that? So that looks a little bit more realistic. Alright. Now we can change this to medium contrast. That'll add a little bit more punch, like it. Then we can probably back the blacks back up. Put that right around -2. I kind of like that. Now I'm noticing a little bit of a purple tinge going on here, it looks like. So I am going to want to get rid of that. Let me just click on one of these. Notice how the purple is lighting up. That's pretty good. And I'm going to go over the brick. Just drag that up a little bit. Alright. So now this is a really cool tool because you can just click around and adjust your saturations independently just by clicking and dragging. So that's why I really like it. And then if you hold the spacebar down, it'll switch to the hand so you can zoom back out. And I'm just going to click back on this target to disable it. Okay. Alright, so that's looking pretty good so far. I just got to raise my sharpening up. Let me zoom in. Much better. Just jacked it up to 51. I'm going to hold the Alt down and make my mask so it's just sharpening the details, like so. There we go, much better. And the noise looks pretty good. I don't even need to touch that. And pretty happy with that. I'm just going to scroll down here and add a little bit of a vignette. Add a little bit more depth to the image. And that's looking pretty good. I might just add a little bit of shadows. Nah, that's pretty good. Whites I could drag up a little bit. That looks pretty good. Somewhere around there is not too bad. Now, what I am noticing is there is a little bit of distortion on the lens when it comes to the horizontal. And I could see, yeah, like that. If you look at the grid, you can see how, because I wasn't perfectly perpendicular, it had like a trapezoid effect where it was thinner on one side than the other. And then you can use this tool to fix that. So I'm just looking at the top row of images, and I'm looking at the bottom row, and you can see how drastically it changes. Pretty cool. But this is one way you can fix it. You can adjust it by doing this, and then you can recrop, you know, to get it straight again. You know, somewhere right around there. Enter. And that looks a little better. So I just had to do the horizontal, the +9, to adjust for that. Again, I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you, but just take your time. You can hit pause. You can go back and watch this a number of times, you know, to make sure you get everything out of it. But I just wanted to illustrate there's so many different ways to do adjustments, you know, and it's really cool. Let me show you another thing, actually. This adjustment brush here, you can select this, and then you have all these tools at your disposal. I'm just going to raise the exposure up, and then down here is your adjustment for the brush. Density, I'm going to raise that up a little bit. And now I can basically paint with the brush and create like hotspots if I want to. Kind of like dodging and burning selectively. And it's a pretty cool feature because you can add more depth to a scene. See that? Now I'm just adding a little bit of drama here to the lawn. It's kind of dodging and burning is what it's called, really. And now, you know, it just adds a little bit something extra to the image. Jack up the brick here along the bottom, just to contrast. So right here, it's going to be a little bit darker. Alright, something like that. So let me show you a before and after. Let me do a Shift Tab. That'll pretty much get rid of all the panels. Then I'm going to do an F for full screen. Alright, then I'm going to do L for lights out, and then I'll put it at black. There we go. Alright, so that's with no adjustments, just the crop, and an after. See that? Pretty amazing what you can do with a raw file. I went pretty far with this one as well, but it looks cool. Let me do a Shift Tab. So I'm having a pretty good time, I must admit. So we did a couple of photos here so far. We did this one, and this one, and we did this one too. That's pretty much it. So I will catch up with you guys later. Be sure to check out SonyAlphaLabs.com.